A massive liquidity shock, gold as leading indicator for good Bitcoin performance, and a completely broken 4-year cycle. So many things are coming together for Bitcoin in 2026. Today I sat down with Marc. He is observing the Bitcoin market every single day since a very long time, and he is even living in the Bitcoin country El Salvador. We talked in depth about what he expects for Bitcoin in 2026 and so much more. Enjoy. Hi Marc, how are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Hey Robin, how's it going? Great to be here.
Absolutely. Really cool to have you. Before we get into, for the few people that maybe don't know you in the English-speaking Bitcoin world, in the German-speaking, I think everyone knows you. Who are you and what are you doing and what makes you excited about Bitcoin?
Yes, I'm super excited about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is like probably the best money we ever had and probably humankind ever invented and will also in the future. I think there will not be like any better type of money. So this is already like top peak performance. So I'm Marc. I'm from the Bitcoin Hotel. It's like a very well-known Bitcoin YouTube channel in the German-speaking area. It's basically one of the most viewed Bitcoin-only channels in the German-speaking area. I was also the introductor of the first Bitcoin hotel in the world. Meanwhile, I'm also the head of Bitcoin strategy at Nakiki SE, a German Bitcoin treasury company. And I'm basically doing Bitcoin all day long, just like you, and exploring different topics. I really also like the deeper topics, the philosophy, but also like I go through the news, what's going on in the markets, and so on. And I'm happy to be here, and let's dig in.
I think we today I want to do a two-part thing with you. Maybe the first part, let's focus a little bit on Bitcoin, what's going on, also the treasury company that you're involved in, and then the later part, I want to focus on Bitcoin philosophy, how you're living in El Salvador, how you're having, I think, a plant-based diet as I know it, and all the things that come with living a Bitcoin life. I love the way how you approach life and how free you also are, as we talked in, I think Salzburg it was the last time. But how do you see the Bitcoin market right now? I think the last year was very, how should I say, disappointing for a lot of people, and now people hope for like the big Bitcoin boom in 2026. How do you look at that?
So right now, to be honest, the sentiment is like super bad, and as a YouTuber, you always have like a little disadvantage compared to normal people because you can always see on the replies to your videos, on the commentators, how the sentiment is. And if you look, like there is not so many new subscribers, the views are down, the comments are really angry. They're like, oh, I'm going out and I'm selling my Bitcoin and it's dying, and it's always the same. So it's not something new, but circles are always repeating. This is nothing new happening. We had this like several times in Bitcoin that people thought, okay, now we're like dead. Now it's like really bad and Bitcoin cannot recover anymore. But this gives me really hope because oftentimes Bitcoin makes exactly the opposite what we think Bitcoin is doing, because everyone was going for the big pump in Q4 2025. And I also thought, okay, let's do this 2025. Bitcoin has to explode because this is like the 4-year cycle. And now we see the 4-year cycle is officially dead. And what we see is, okay, probably now the big pump, which everyone expected in 2025, probably we have like an extended type of cycle. So we have like probably a big performance in 2026 because we have so many things going on now. So what's happening now is liquidity is pretty high probability coming back to the market. What we see is Bitcoin is like always highly correlated to liquidity. So without proper liquidity, Bitcoin is like, really hard in having like a good performance. But now we see signs that liquidity is coming back because Donald Trump already said, okay, hey, I want to take over the Federal Reserve. We want to bring down interest rates to 1%, fire Jerome Powell. Then we have other things. We have like governments who can't control their debt. So we have debt crisis basically all over the world. So it's not just in the US, it's also in other countries. We have really interesting structure in Japan. Then what else do we have? We have like this clarity right now. So the institutions, they can really, with comfort, go into Bitcoin. So we have the Clarity Act, which is almost ready to go in the US, in other regions worldwide. We also have like this institutional adoption. And I think if we just can get the flywheel kicking back and the sentiment is like switching a bit, then I think we can have like this Bitcoin momentum again, because Bitcoin is always like a momentum trade. And then probably also we need like this type of risk on sentiment, because right now we are like in this risk off sentiment, which means we have like still some uncertainties because of the trade deals. Now we had like Donald Trump conquering Venezuela, and there is still like some uncertainty in the market. But if the markets know, okay, liquidity is coming, the economy is kind of stable, and Bitcoin is a solution for it. Bitcoin is a hard asset, and gold is already kind of showing us what is coming next, because gold is always coming before and Bitcoin is coming next. And if this risk on sentiment is coming back, then I also think Bitcoin will flip gold, and gold will underperform and Bitcoin will overperform. And then we have like probably a pretty strong 2026.
I love that. And the Venezuela one was interesting. I always heard about Venezuela, and like I never really paid attention to what the conflict was all about the US and the Venezuela. But I just saw it today, but I didn't really read into that. Maybe you saw it, that apparently had some Bitcoin. Have you heard that? Have you seen that story?
Yeah, I made a video about it. So this is super interesting, because you really have to ask, okay, what is the incentive to go into a country and to take over the country? And sure, you can argue about socialism and ending like a dictator and whatever. And probably this is one of the reasons. But to be honest, it's always about money. It's always about commodities. It's always about power. And if you look, Venezuela, they have one of the top gold reserves in America. I don't know if it's like the top, but it's like one of the top countries with the biggest gold reserves. Venezuela has like lots of oil reserves, and Venezuela, they are well-known Bitcoin country. They did Bitcoin mining already back in 2017. And there is like this one rumor. It's not a validated fact, but it's big rumor that Venezuela has like 600,000 Bitcoin, and they used those Bitcoin because they wanted to bring commodities out of the country. And how can you bring commodities out of the country? It's pretty hard. So the best way is to just swap it into Bitcoin. So there is rumors that they just use it to bring the money value out of the country, and then probably they swapped it back into other commodities, or there's really those 600,000 Bitcoin, and probably they don't have the 600,000 Bitcoin. Probably it's just half, or it's just a bit less. I don't know how much Bitcoin they have, but I'm pretty sure, I think you can say with confidence that at least some type of Bitcoin they have, and some type of mining infrastructure. And then the next interesting thing is, because the US, they don't want to officially buy Bitcoin. They say, okay, it has to be tax neutral. And if you look, also Scott Bessent was saying, okay, we don't really want to buy Bitcoin. Afterwards, he corrected himself a bit, but we always can confiscate Bitcoin. So what we also see, like the Bitcoin reserve of the US, it's almost 100% confiscated Bitcoin. And you also have to ask yourself, if the US wants to be the Bitcoin superpower of the world, how can you be the Bitcoin superpower of the world if you don't have, let's say, 1 million Bitcoin or 2 million Bitcoin? I mean, that's not possible. That's like an oxymoron. So you need big Bitcoin reserves, but you cannot buy it because it has to be tax neutral. So what can you do? You can, for example, go to countries where there is a lot of Bitcoin, and you can take over the Bitcoin. Or we can also discuss this later, the Bitcoin treasury endgame, because if you look what happened with big gold companies in the history, they also always been confiscated, like the Bank of England. So the other thing a country could do, they could just nationalize a Bitcoin treasury company or something like that. But that the idea that the US is just buying like 1 million Bitcoin spot on the market, this is like crazy. I don't think this is how this happens. They have to find ways to nationalize things, to take over Bitcoin or something like that. And it can be that this is one of the reasons they also want Venezuela, or why it's interesting. But to be honest, it's not like a fact or something like that. It's just like open thinking. It's just more like of a speculation right now. But in the past time, we saw there's lots of speculations from Bitcoiner. They became true.
They tend to be true. The treasury company space is really interesting, and I was always very skeptical, and I'm still like kind of skeptical. But I said to myself, and I also made it public, that I really want to learn about treasury companies. And I get a lot of shit for saying like, "Hey, why did you take so long to research that space?" Fair enough. I was into Bitcoin since now over 5 years, and it took me that same amount of time to research treasury companies. So I'm right now diving really deep into strategy. And once I'm done with strategy, which will take me a while because I like to go really deep into things, I'll probably go to other treasury companies. But what do you mean with treasury endgame? How do you see the whole space, especially also because you're involved with a German treasury company?
Mhm. I have a short question for you, because lots of people who are skeptical about Bitcoin treasury companies, they don't understand like the core principle of a treasury company. So Robin, what is the best use case for fiat money in your opinion?
You have to short it.
Yes, you have to short it and you have to buy Bitcoin. So the best use case for fiat money is to buy Bitcoin and to short fiat money. Or with Bitcoin, you can also short Bitcoin. So this is basically the idea of a Bitcoin treasury company. So Bitcoiners, they were always talking about the speculative attack, and Pierre Rochard was writing articles in 2014. And even if you go further back, Helfini was already talking about Bitcoin banks. So this is nothing like really surprising. This is just like a normal adoption thing. Now the Bitcoin treasury is growing, and the idea is super simple. You can buy Bitcoin, but also you can short fiat and buy Bitcoin. And this is basically the super combination, because you don't just appreciate from the upside of Bitcoin, you also appreciate from the downside of fiat money. Or how I would explain it, if I go even more first principle, if you look, the main characteristic of fiat money is, it's like, if you let's say put an emotion on it, then lots of people would say, okay, fiat is working with oh, now I don't have the English words. Fiat is working with, it's always using like fear. It's like really those low type of emotions. And also, if you look, when was fiat money created? It was always created to fund wars. It was always created to fund corrupt politics and whatever. So fiat was always something that was used against the people. And now we have Bitcoin, and this is like the first type of financial innovation which is not used against people, but it's used for the people. It's a tool to unite the people. And fiat money is a tool to separate the people. Bitcoin is a tool that spreads love. Fiat is a tool that spreads anger. Bitcoin is a tool that is decentralized. Fiat is a tool that is centralized. So we have like all those characteristics. So basically, if you just put it down to first principles, you're just taking like this bad type of energy and putting it like into love, or putting it like into a higher type of energy. So this is really like a transformation. So you're putting the money out of this old corrupt system, which is anytime getting broke, and putting it into this new type of system. So the only real use case and the only the only actual use for fiat money is buying Bitcoin with it. And that's exactly what a treasury company is doing. And a treasury company can do it more efficient than like a normal person, because a normal person, they have probably harder time to get to loans, or harder time to finance on the financial markets. And as a treasury company, if you're a public traded vehicle, you have like super crazy possibilities, like strategies now doing with the preferred shares, or with the convertibles, or even with other type of bond structures. And this is like super exciting for me, because it's like being part of the speculative attack against the fiat system.
Yeah, that's really interesting because like you basically, if you short the fiat currencies and buy Bitcoin with that, you are accelerating the speed of adoption, how fiat is collapsing and Bitcoin is getting adopted in a sense. And so like this is really interesting. And you mentioned the end game of governments basically nationalizing and taking the reserves. This is actually something that someone brought up to me with strategy that like, of course, the USA will do it. And he talks like that, like it's already official. I'm not sure, but like the more I think about it, the more I could see that happening, that like governments actually go ahead and say like, hey, Bitcoin is so huge and you are now such a huge company because you have so many Bitcoin, you are not critical infrastructure, you are a threat to the nation state if you do something wrong with the Bitcoin. So sorry, but like we have to buy you out, and then the shareholders get a bunch of fiat and for their Bitcoin, then they can go buy Bitcoin with that, I guess, and everyone is happy, and the Bitcoin is with the nation state. Is that basically the end game that you're also seeing?
Yeah, so I made some research and I just wanted to see, okay, what's happening with all the big gold companies, because we have, for example, had the Bank of England, and there was also other big type of gold companies. And what Saylor's doing, and he's even saying it himself, it's basically nothing new, because there were also those gold companies and they did basically similar things than Saylor's doing. They were just putting hard assets, then they were collateralizing, lending against it, or putting the Bitcoin into smart type of financial products, or the gold into smart type of financial products, offering those products and selling it to the market and buying more gold out of it. So they were basically shorting fiat, or shorting like the currency they had back in the days, and buying gold out of it. And what always happened to those companies, they were growing to like the top performing companies. They were like one of the biggest type of companies. And at some point, there was always like an oh shit moment. So government was into war, government was corrupt, was bankrupt, government had problems, like currency problems or whatever. And the Bank of England, they sustained like almost like more than 100 years, like a pretty long time, until this oh shit moment happened. But even at some point, they nationalized it. And it's always some type of nationalizing or overtaking the company, or sometimes it's like even like forbidding the commodity. I mean, for Bitcoin to forbid it, to just censor it, is pretty hard. I don't think they will do it. And also, I don't think they will just do it like back in the game. They will not just come and say, okay, give me all your Bitcoin and we'll just take it from you. There will be like more, yeah, let's say more soft power versions of it. So there's always like this two type of things. You can use soft power, you can use hard power. Hard power is you just take the pistol and say, give me your Bitcoin. Soft power is something different, that probably people, they the Bitcoin into some type of vehicles, and the government, they will not really directly steal it, but you will probably not have control over the Bitcoin anymore. Or another example is like inflation is like a super good example for soft power. So we are not taking the money out of you directly, but over time we are like taking a bit every month, a bit every year, and lots of people don't even realize it. And some type of soft power mechanism also, if they do it, they will use it. They will not just go for it, they will just probably use some type of this structure. And also, I don't think that it's like bad for the treasury company, because sometimes it can probably be even good for a treasury company, because probably they will even buy out strategy or other type of strategy, Bitcoin treasury company. So I'm not 100% sure if this will be like an evil attack. It can be an evil attack, but I'm not sure it will be an evil attack. But at some point, the US and other big nations, they have to accumulate Bitcoin. This is like the software theory from Jason Lowery, because he's saying, okay, Bitcoin is a means of national security for big countries. And surprise, he's now also like the military. He had like a new job into the US military, and he's now like one of the leading type of guards in the US. And he's also now into the US strategic defense. I don't know what's the correct term, but some type of military structure. And I think this is not like something that will probably happen. I'm sure if Bitcoin is evolving, if Bitcoin is going further, at some point, nation states, they have to look where they can get Bitcoin. And probably treasury companies are one type of deal where you can just collaborate with a treasury company. I really think it's more like a collaboration. I don't think it's like an evil takeover. This is what happened with gold. I don't think it will happen with Bitcoin, but probably I'm too naive. I don't know. Or you just invade other countries, take their Bitcoin reserves. But this is also hard because how do you get the key if they don't give you the key, how do you get the key? Or maybe they don't even have the key, or it's multi-signature or whatever. So, but I don't want to be like a bear or something like that. This is not like that I say Bitcoin is like not working or there is like problems into Bitcoin. I see this more like as a opportunity because the Bitcoin treasury companies also we're like so far away from this end game. We're just like in the beginning of the Bitcoin treasury companies. So what will happen now is they will just get more Bitcoin on the balance sheets. Then they will use the Bitcoin on the balance sheets to issue preferreds, to do other things, to develop structures like MetaPlanet is doing with their cash flow strategy. So they will just produce those financial type of structures and financial type of products. And I think it's just the beginning to accumulate Bitcoin. There will come creative ideas and other ways to use the Bitcoin. And then if we go further, at some point, probably we can come to the end game. But this is probably not happening now. This is probably, I don't know when it's happening. It also depends on how the fiat game is going on. So there's lots of factors and also like nothing fixed, but it's definitely a probability.
I'm thinking of like who will be the real target, and I might even see like Coinbase being a bigger target than Strategy, because Coinbase, I mean, they themselves only hold like a few 10,000s of Bitcoin, I think, like 10 or 20 or something like that. But they manage over 2 million Bitcoin. So they're actually the ones that hold the keys for the other parties. So it's always like people look at Strategy having a lot of Bitcoin, but actually I think Coinbase has a lot of Bitcoin because they actually have the keys.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think the next big thing for the treasury companies will be to develop strategies to defend against this type of attack vector, because you can use like multi-country, multi-signature type of structures. What gives me hope is that Bitcoin is like way better to structure than gold, because gold is super easy to censor, because you can just go to the Trezor, you can go to Fort Knox, and you can basically just raid it and take the gold out of it. But Bitcoin, you have so many great ways to structure it. You can use multi-signature, you can even use time locks, you can probably people are getting even more creative in the future, because let's say you have like 10 Bitcoin, and sure, you're using your hardware wallet, you're probably using multi-signature, but let's say you have 600,000 Bitcoin like Microseed is doing. Sure, the type of creativity that is coming when you protect 600,000 Bitcoin is the other type of creativity than when you protect 10 Bitcoin. So I think also there will be like super bulletproof type of structures which Bitcoin treasury companies have to develop, that they can just set up from a legal framework, also like from a Bitcoin technical framework, and from different types of perspectives to just protect themselves against those type of attacks. And I think this is like super exciting, because I think those type of raids or those type of asset takeover scenarios we had like in the past, it's not so easy with Bitcoin. So basically a hardware wallet is more bulletproof than Fort Knox. You have to imagine, this is like crazy.
The first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relai to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are two main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks, or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relai, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today, and you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Yeah, and you have so many interesting and creative ways to protect yourself that you just can't get with muscle power. So like gold, you can always like, okay, where is it? And then let's go in with a lot of strength and power and let's just get it. Only with a simple hardware wallet, you can make a decoy wallet and hide your real Bitcoin on that wallet with a passphrase. I mean, that's like a very simple thing that you can do. Then you can have multi-signature, you can have time locks, you can have like keys that come up after a certain time. Like there's like so many different ways you can protect your Bitcoin and hide them that you need brain power and like creativity to even find. And I think this is changing a lot in the world. I'm even curious if I talked yesterday about Venezuela and what happened in the war with my girlfriend, and she's like, "Does Bitcoin fix that?" And I was like, yeah, I think so. Like, I'm not 100% sure to the extent to what Bitcoin fixes wars and to the extent like how wars will still happen and what kind of change Bitcoin will bring. It will probably also depend on like what the time frame is that you're looking at. But essentially, a lot of wars are financed by printing money and are financed by like the fiat machine. And so if you take away that fiat machine over a long period of time, maybe wars are not completely gone. There will always be conflicts between humans. Humans probably stay humans, but I don't know. It might just be happening. I'm not sure about that. I didn't do a deep dive actually on that topic, but I could imagine that wars getting shortened and diminished. I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure, because I mean, sure, it's like just a theory, but if you just take out the money printer out of the equation, I mean, sure, definitely. I mean, how can you raise capital for a war? I mean, you have to raise taxes, and it's just like super unpopular. You have to get like economic productivity, and it's hard to generate economic productivity in a war type of scenarios. You can also take like your savings, but savings are gone super fast. I heard some statistics like in the First World War, Germany had reserves like for a few weeks, but they made war for several years. So without a printer press, it's not imaginable. And sure, just like you said, there will be like regional conflicts, probably even like big conflicts, but it will not be like sustained conflicts. And this is like the tragedy, because this is just like Julian Assange said, you always need this war type of machine to pump up the stocks, to pump up the stock market, to get the economy growing. This is like so weird. We need war to get the economy growing because this creates revenue, this creates GDP and whatever. And so you always want a bit of war, but you don't want escalation. So this is basically the big takeaway from Julian Assange, what he spoke about. And then he had also to pay the price for it because he uncovered like those evil things. And also like nowadays it's not like a super wild theory or something like that. It's pretty hard facts that all the time those big central banks were created. It was always in war times. It was always when they searched new type of financial power to fund the war. And also like 1971, what happened, the US had no more money for the war. So it's always the same playbook. And that's also why I like to look in the history, because history is not repeating one-on-one, but the playbook is always some type of similar. So you always use like same type of structures. And I see like so many things repeating now because you have like this financial repression of people, but also it's not just about financial repression, it's also about freedom of speech, where in some countries you just don't allow people to criticize the government anymore. And it's like confiscating that at some point the money is breaking down, and what's next? You have to raise the taxes, and then the next point is you have to get to the money from the people, so you get to the savings first, then you go to real estate. Next would be you confiscate the gold or you confiscate the Bitcoin, but obviously it's hard to confiscate the Bitcoin, so I think they won't do it. They will go for the low-hanging fruits. So it's always like repeating, but it's repeating like with other type of structures. So just like I said in the beginning, it's not like they are coming to your house and taking the money. It's like they are doing it way smarter with inflation. They're doing it like with with softer type of structures, or they are just like saying, okay, it's still your asset, but your asset has to be custodied in our type of financial structure, and still on the paper it's your asset, but in reality you don't have access to it anymore. And this is even happening with real estate. So if you have real estate, sure, it's still your real estate, but you cannot decide who you let into your real estate. You cannot decide what type of heating system you have in your real estate. There is so many limitations. You have to do some type of renovations. If you don't do those renovations, then you get fines or whatever. So on the paper, it's everything yours, but in reality, you don't really have access to it. And this can happen also like with savings on a bank account. For example, there was this famous talking in German politics where like Friedrich Merz, he said like, okay, we have to mobilize like the savings. And also Lagarde said something like that. She said also something like, we have to mobilize the savings account. And God knows what they mean with that. But you can just put together one-on-one, and you can probably imagine that it's not something like we are using it for something good or whatever. We are just taking the savings and using it for war or using it for something else. So there is different type of mechanisms to get to the money, but in the end, it's always the same. They can't sustain themselves anymore, so they have to take the money from the people. They have to tax them harder, and Bitcoin is here a super good protection, because the harder they play this playbook, the more valuable Bitcoin becomes.
I love that. And this is also showing like, even if you don't have the war situation, even if you have a normal like nation state situation, here you also have the strength of Bitcoin over the long run. What will they tax? They go towards real estate. They go towards the low-hanging fruits, because if they start taxing Bitcoin, the Bitcoin will leave the nation state. They will just go out and say and find some better. I mean, you're a prime example. Like, you did not like Germany and you said goodbye. I'm going to El Salvador. This is voting with your feet, and this is the strongest vote you can possibly give in a nation state. No longer to vote. I mean, like to go out of it. This is I think the one of the strongest points for Bitcoin, because it's capital that can just flee the country, can just flee wherever it is. Real estate, it stays in the country. yes, you can sell it, but then it still stays in the country and someone else owns it. The state still wins. It's just that it takes it from someone else now, and you have to you have to pay taxes when you sell it and all of those things. And it's a whole thing. But yeah, it seems like I'm shitting.
Did you ask yourself probably this question? Why is always real estate? Why are there always tax benefits on it? So why is there probably, if you have real estate, there is like little tax benefits, and it's like in lots of countries, because the state actually wants you to own assets the state can control, and the state does not want you to own assets the state cannot control. What did Christine Lagarde say? There are people trying to escape the euro or trying to escape the system. And if there is an escape, the escape will be used. So we must shut down the escape. And this is like, basically, they are doxing themselves. They are saying it. It's not like something secret. They know that Bitcoin is like the escape, and they want to shut it down. So that's what's happening in Europe. They're using now like harder regulation with MiCA, with DAC8, and they have like super strong regulation because they know they cannot control Bitcoin, but they can bring Bitcoin into wrappers. They can bring Bitcoin into vehicles they can control. And this is like the ETFs. It's also the treasury companies. It's also like on exchanges. And I don't want to say that it's something bad. I mean, I'm still part of a treasury company. It's something wonderful. It's something beautiful. But you always have to know that Bitcoin and self-custody, nobody can replace. And I think a Bitcoin treasury company is a better type of vehicle, but I think that exchanges are really like not the best type of vehicle to keep your Bitcoin, because this is like the lowest hanging fruit. This is the easiest way to get access to your Bitcoin, and they don't want to have the Bitcoin in self-custody. They don't want to have the full control of it. They always want control, and they can control Bitcoin peer-to-peer, they can control self-custody, and that's also why they are framing it. And in Europe, we have this word like unhosted wallet, and they are always like putting it into framing it on the unhosted wallets, and it's like such an weird wording. And they just use this playbook, which we were already talking about, and they are repeating it, but what's the only thing they can target with Bitcoin? They cannot go directly for the gold. They cannot go directly for the real estate. If you make the comparison, they cannot do this with Bitcoin, but they can go for the on and off ramps, and that's basically what they are controlling. And that's also why they want to roll out the stable coins, because it's a perfect vehicle to control like the on and off ramps. And that's also why they plan the digital euro, because it's a perfect vehicle to control like everything. They want to get rid of cash money. They want to just keep the digital euro. And then you have like other types of structures like digital ID. You have like a wealth register or something like that, which is planned in the EU. And if you put this all together, then you have really those two types of superpowers who are fighting against each other. On the one hand, it's the decentralized freedom type of world, which is Bitcoin. And on the other hand, you have the centralized control, corrupt type of fiat system. And this is clashing against each other. But truth is always winning. That's what I'm believing. That's what you're believing. Otherwise, we would not do what we are doing. But sometimes it can be hard. And also, I think it's like a process, because people, they have to learn, but people don't learn with thinking. They don't learn with just observing. They oftentimes learn by, getting robbed, getting broken, getting sick, getting ill. They really need this type of pain to realize how powerful Bitcoin is.
I love that. This is so great. And I also, when I heard, I mean, I literally pulled this up in one of my live streams, the same clip that you just like mentioned from Lagarde of saying like, if an escape is there, it will be used. And I'm like, that's very true. And it shows it shows you almost the arrogance that you say that on live TV, in my opinion. Unhosted wallet is also something like, it's a self-hosted wallet. I mean, if you want to have that weird wording, then at least call it self-hosted, not unhosted, because someone has to host it. Otherwise, it's nothing. There's not such a thing as like unhosted, in my opinion. But it's crazy what they're doing. Actually, like, how do you, before we get into the topic of why you moved to El Salvador and how you're living there, maybe the topic of like, how do you look at MiCA and how do you look at Europe right now? I mean, it is a regulatory thing, and like people say like, oh, the asset is maturing, the industry is maturing, and I'm like, they're just bringing more KYC to all of it. Like nothing really changed except like more KYC. Is that a wrong view of mine?
Yeah, it's not just KYC. They don't want like the anonymity of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is not anonymous. We all know this. Bitcoin is pseudonym. I don't know. Is it pseudonym is the right word? Yes, right.
Yeah, that's the right word. Yeah.
Yeah. So what they don't want is like, they don't want that you can hide, or I mean, you're not hiding. You're just basically hodling. It's like privacy is basically a human right, and they're taking this human right from you by just controlling and surveilling like everything. And also the really bad part, that's really what's concerning for me. It's not like that they have to prove that you did something wrong. You have to prove to them that you did not something wrong. So you have to protocol a lot. So in Germany, we also have like this type of wealth, type of, I don't know, rule, or I don't know how to tell it, wealth type of rule, where you have to tell the government that you did not do some criminal activity with your assets. It's not that the government has to prove it to you, you have to prove it to them. And this is like, in my opinion, like a super, super evil type of structure. In the end, it's always the same. They are telling you it's for, money laundering. It's for like terrorism, to protect the people against terrorism. It's about democracy, to save democracy. It's about being a solidarian type of human or something like that. They are always using like this moral type of arguments and saying, okay, we are saving you. But we all know also from Corona time, if you give up your safety if you give up your freedom for safety, in the end, you will lose both. You will lose your freedom and you will lose your safety. So this is super, super important. And I think, to be honest, it's like a lose-lose situation. I get the argument. I get it that like this is like the other type of side of it, that like big capital cannot move into Bitcoin if there is no regulatory framework. This is also what's happening in the US with the market structure bill, with the Clarity Act, and what's all happening over there. And this is important because as for a business, you need like a structure, you need like the proof that if you do something with Bitcoin, you will not end up in jail, because this is what happened with Operation Chokepoint 2.0 in the US. They were just coming for all the Bitcoin companies and all the Bitcoin banks and just putting them into jail or closing down their bank accounts or whatever they did with it. So this is super critical. And if you do some type of regulatory things, okay, then give them some type of clarity structure, but you don't have to KYC everything to that. You don't have to KYC like the normal people which buy like, let's say, $100 on a Bitcoin exchange. You don't have to KYC like everything to death and then say to everyone, basically, you're a terrorist. And because you're a terrorist, you have to prove to us that you're not a terrorist. And just if you prove to us that you're not a terrorist, then you can buy some Bitcoin. And this is like fundamentally wrong, in my opinion. So this has to be the way around. So you're a free person. You did nothing wrong. You're just buying Bitcoin. You're saving Bitcoin. And you're just like a regular guy. And they're saying, no, you're not a regular guy. You're basically like a terrorist. And the next problem is they're inflating the money. And then you want an escape because they don't give you a solution. I mean, if they give you a solution, if they don't inflate the money, or if they have like stable economy, if they have like a good system or whatever, and people want to support this system and there's like really sound money over there, I mean, sure, then you don't need like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, you basically just need it if the government is going crazy, if the money is inflating, let's say we have money which is not inflating, let's say we have government that is working for the people instead of against the people, then the use of Bitcoin would be way, way less. Probably it would not be none, but way, way less. But they are doing like all the evil things. And then you're looking for a solution. And then instead of saying, okay, you can use the solution, they're saying, oh no, we are taxing the solution. And this is like the next thing. This is like with all those, I heard this from France. There were rumors in France about doing it, and also in some type of other countries, unrealized gains tax. And this is like the most horrific thing, when you tax gains that are not even realized. So unrealized gains tax. I don't know if something like this is coming, but I heard already some type of countries talking about this. And in my opinion, this is wrong. You should support Bitcoin, because this is also what separates, let's say, nations that are winning from nations that are losing. Nations who are winning in the futures, they realize, okay, Bitcoin is a technology just like the internet. It's a protocol. It's actually not even a technology. So it's a protocol. And it's even more, it's a network. It's a network just like the internet, or it's a protocol just like electricity, or just like the fire, or whatever. It's like a super, super basic type of thing. Or let's say it's a technology, you can name it whatever you want. I prefer protocol or network, but if you go for technology, okay, I'm fine with that too. But in the history, it was always bad to ban technologies. It was always bad to ban protocols. It was always bad to ban networks. It was always better to be part of the network, to be part of the protocol, to be part of the technology. And this is what basically is happening in Europe. They are not part of the technology. They are not part of the protocol. They are not part of the network. They are actually trying to limitate it. They are actually trying to bring it in like a structure. They are not letting it free float. They are like they see it like an enemy. They see it like an enemy. Oh, how can we win against this enemy? And it's always like, there is like this meme where Lagarde is like watching the book, How Can You Stop Bitcoin? And there's like this page, and it's, you cannot stop Bitcoin. and this is like how it will end, and how also like wealthy states will separate from the evil states, because the evil states, they will tax it to death. They will try to confiscate it. They will try to control it. They will try to ban it or whatever. And the smart states, the winning states, the winning nation states, they will go for Bitcoin. They say, oh, come, bring Bitcoin into the country. You're welcome, Bitcoiners. Come here to the country. We make no taxes on it. And also they will support it. They will give you a legal structure. There will be some legal type of structure, but it will not be like, okay, everything is KYC to death. It will be like, okay, there is some type of regulatory structure, but we keep you a lot of freedom. You have the safety from us that if you invest in Bitcoin, yeah, we will not do something to your company. That's like the legal framework. But on the other hand, yeah, the countries who don't do this, I think they will lose. And that's like the big separation, which will happen like in the next years. And I think Bitcoin is something you cannot stop anymore. Yeah, that's good.
100%.
Yeah.
I just brought that when you were talking. I thought about that meme, so I was searching it, and I actually found it. If you just type in like Europe regulate meme, you instantly find it. And I love that. I don't know if Americans are even aware of that meme, because we now have a rule that forbids the bottle makers to make the things detachable, like the bottle, like the cap of the bottle. So if you put it off, it's still on there. You kind of have to rip it apart. And I always do that. I literally always rip that thing apart, because it just like is bad. But the bad thing is, if you rip it apart, there's like something standing off, and sometimes it's like hurting your lips. So I usually also get rid of the down part. Like the most rebellious thing, I guess, you can do in Europe, ripping the plastic bottles apart. But this is really how I see it. Like America brings all the innovation, like outside of Europe is all the regulation. And then Europe is like, oh, we just done with regulating the internet. Now we have to regulate Bitcoin and AI. Like, oh yeah, why don't you just make a nice framework so companies actually coming here to Europe and actually innovating in that space. It's very sad to see as someone that still lives in that European regime, and especially if I see someone like you that is no longer in that European regime.
But Robin, do you know why they are regulating so hard?
Because they can't innovate?
Yeah, probably. But I think there's also another reason, because there's always two type of things how you can manage a company, how you can manage a nation state. So the logical thing would always be to just have like the best product. To that's what you basically said with innovation. So to have like better products, to have like a super nice country, to have like a super nice company where you have like cool people, where you have like a cool setting. And what they are doing, because they are so incompetent, and I don't think it's like that the people are incompetent, but I think that the incentives in the system are so bad that basically the incentives are growing this type of incompetence. And out of this, what is happening, because we have so many incompetent leaders and people over there, they are basically just corrupting this whole country. They are basically, collapsing this whole country. And then what they do, instead of making the country better, instead of making the product better, because if the product is good, if the country is good, people are coming by themselves. You don't have to force them to come there. People are using it by themselves. If you have a smartphone, people don't use it because we force them to do it. People use it because it gives them something, it gives them benefits. They like to use a smartphone. And it's the same with countries. But what they are doing in Europe, the product is so bad and it's getting worse every day. So they try to stop people from escaping from Europe. So they have an exit tax. So they have like capital controls. This is probably the next thing in the playbook which will come. Inflation is already happening. Capital controls is probably one of the next. And exit tax is also something they always use. And they even have this in the US. In the US, they have even taxation by person. So you cannot escape the tax system in the US, to be honest. So even if you're always talking about US innovating, but you also have to be honest, they have like worldwide tax. You cannot really escape it unless you give up your passport, I think. So this is what's always happening. You should always look as a company, as a person, how can I give value to people? So people, they don't watch your channel because you force them to do it. You give them value. That's why the people watch your channel and they make it voluntarily. And in Europe, it's the other way around. People want to go out, but they cannot go out because the exit tax is too high. There is invisible walls they are building. Now it's starting with ETFs. If you have an ETF and it goes higher than a certain threshold, then you have to pay exit tax for the ETF just to hold it. And this is like super going out of what is good for people. And this is also like what we talked about with the soft and the hard power. In former times, you used like the hard power. For example, you had like the Berlin Wall. It was like a real wall, and you cannot go over the wall because it was physically there. And now we don't have this Berlin Wall anymore. It's not like a physical wall, but it's like this invisible wall with the digital euro, which is coming, with the digital ID, which is coming, with a wealth register, which is probably coming. It's not fixed, but it's already, there's research about it, with exit taxes, and probably they will get pretty creative to even make more type of invisible walls. And if your product is so good, then why do we need an invisible wall? If the euro is so good, why do we have to force people to use it? If Europe is so good or Germany is so good, why do we have to have an exit tax? This is questions you should just ask yourself, because if the product would be really good, people would use it by themselves.
The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC free Bitcoin. That's why I use Simple Mining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together. I 100% agree with that. I have nothing more to add to that. And I think I wanted to ask you, why did you move to El Salvador? I guess you already brought some reasons up. Is there anything you want to add to that question? Like why did you move to El Salvador? And I think you're down there now like 2 years or something like that.
Yeah,
so
something like that. Yeah.
So you already have some experience now?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not like all the time here. Most of the time I'm like half a year here, then some time of the year I'm in Portugal, other countries, and probably also like 1 or 2 months visiting my family in Germany. So I'm like a bit traveling around, but not too much. Most of the time I'm in El Salvador. And I think it's never a good idea to go to a country because you want to flee another country. So this is like a negative motivation. So if you try to escape something, probably it's not like the best motivation. If you go to a country, the motivation should always be to get wealthier, to get healthier, to get a better person, to get a better life, to upgrade your lifestyle. This is always like the motivation. If you look what type of expats are like successful and what type of expats are not successful, they always have like a positive kind of motivation. And for example, for me, like the biggest motivation was just if I look on the weather in Germany, we have now like -8 degrees or something like that, and here it's like 30 degrees. I can go to the beach, I can go to the waterfall, to the volcanoes and whatever. So it's not just about the tax, about the government and whatever. To be honest, if sure, it's getting bad and it's getting worse, but you can still live like a good life in Germany. It's still possible. Probably at some point it won't be possible anymore. It's now at the point where you probably don't have to live in the big cities anymore, because this is probably a no-go, because also like the security situation in the cities is getting worse and worse. So, but probably if you like on a remote type of countryside house or something like that, you still can have like a super nice life, I guess, in Germany. But you cannot have the sun, you cannot have the volcanoes, the ocean and whatever. And this was basically one of the top reasons. But then came like the other things also to it. Then came like the taxes, then the bureaucracy, the political system, like all the things we discussed about, and also like the perspective, because I like to be in countries where the perspective is going to the moon, just like Bitcoin. We are in Bitcoin because we have like a positive perspective on the world, because we know Bitcoin is the best performing asset, and it probably will be like the best performing asset in the next 10, 20, 30, 30 years. And we don't want to be like part of a system that is basically dying. And if you're in Europe, then you're basically part of a system that is dying. If you're into fiat, you're part of a system that is basically dying. And if you're in other countries, or if you're basically stateless, because basically what I'm doing is I'm also not attached to El Salvador. I'm not saying like I'm leaving here like for the rest of my world. I'm basically like a decentralized person, you could say. I'm not 100% dedicated to one type of state. I really like to decentralize everything in my life. So most of the people, they have like everything into one country. They have like their passport in the country, they have the company in the country, they live in the country, they were growing up in the country, they have the money in the country. And what I like is to decentralize this. So let's say, why just have like one bank account in this country? Why not have like another bank account in another country, and probably in another continent? Why always have like the company in the country where you live? you can also have the company in another country than the company where you're living. And then you have some type of decentralization. And you can have another passport from another country, then you have even more decentralization. And then you probably can have decentralized money, then you have even more decentralization. Because if then something happens, if your bank account gets closed, okay, it's not a worst case because you're decentralized. If your passport gets attacked, okay, it's not a worst case because you probably have a second passport or whatever. If your company gets attacked, okay, probably it's not a worst case because the company is not in the country you're living, and the country you're living is not the country you're having like a citizenship or whatever. I'm just like giving you like basic insights into how I'm thinking. I'm still not having like a second passport, but I'm kind of working on it. So this is like the thing that's a bit of missing. But I think this is really part of this game of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the beginning, but the end is like this sovereign individual, a wealthy, healthy, decentralized, harmonious, super fulfilled human being, and Bitcoin is one part of it.
I love that. And is there something in you that you say like you might change that in the future, where you maybe settle down on one point, like with house and kids, like the dream that so many chase?
I don't know, to be honest. But also on the other side, I'm not like this crazy traveler. So basically what I'm doing, I'm having like 2 or 3 spots, basically 3 spots or something like that. So let's say I'm 3 months in Portugal, I'm 3 months in Germany, I'm like 6 months in El Salvador or something like that. So I'm basically settled down. I'm not like traveling like crazy because I don't like all the flights and all the transportation or whatever. But the thing is, you have to imagine that the dreams, the big dream, you have to really ask yourself, where is the dream coming from? Is it really your dream? Or is it probably the dream of your family? Is it the dream of the country? Is it the dream of the society? And if you're 100% honest, then probably you have to let go of all this bullshit, because it's not your authentic self. It's not an authentic dream. It's just like a bullshit idea which society brought up, and you just copy pasting it, and then in the end you're wondering why you're never happy. Sure, because you're achieving, or you're clinging to goals which are not authentic, which are not basically your goals. It's just like crazy ideas. And this is always like also how systems, this is like what I call the matrix, how the matrix is basically controlling you. It's not it's also like mind control, because we talked about money control, but the next big topic, this is mind control, because people, they are not aware of who they are. They are not aware of who is thinking, who's having like this emotions, who's experiencing everything. And as long as you don't have like this insight, as long as you don't have like this type of consciousness, then you're always corruptible, because you will always take over thoughts, you will take over mindsets which are not really yours, and you're always controlled also via thought, via consciousness. And this is also under attack. Your thoughts are under attack, your consciousness is under attack, and you have to be aware of it.
Do you have like, I mean, it gets very philosophical, but like, do you have like a different dream of like how you want to have your perfect life set together, or like you're already in it?
The thing is, the dream is always like a scam, because if you're dreaming about the perfect life, then it always says that right now you're not really fine with it. So I like the other way around. I like to really be thankful for what I have, and I like to be like super into the moment, and I like to really just take what I have and make the best out of what I have right now. And then what is happening, because you're appreciating it, because you're thankful of it, and you're like in a more harmonious type of state, then universe says you, okay, this type of human being, he's like super into himself. He's like super focused on the moment. He's like super happy with what he already has. And because he's in this fulfillment, he's like in this type of fulfillment state, then the universe saying, okay, I don't give you what you want, but I give you what you are. So you're never attracting what you want, but you're always attracting what you are. And if you're already fulfilled, if you're already thankful, if you're already wealthy and healthy right now, then the universe gives you more out of it. And this is like almost like a cheat code in the universe. So don't look too much into the future and look, okay, there's the dream life or whatever. I want this. Really bring down the focus, the attention to the here and now, because there is nothing else than the here and now. Everything else is a scam. And really appreciate what you have. And even if it's not much, as long as you appreciate what you have, as long as you're fine with what you have, then you will be a fulfilled person. And if you're a fulfilled person, the universe will give you more out of it. And if you're not a fulfilled person, if you always want more, if you want the boat, if you want this, that, and whatever, then you're not in a type of fulfillment. You're basically in a type of, in a type of, I don't know, in a type of emergency state where you're always greedy, you want something, and you're always like fighting for it. And this is not a fulfillment state. This is like almost like an empty state. And this empty state is not giving you more things. It's not giving you more health, wealth, good relations, good experiences. It's basically attracting more problems. It's basically attracting more robbery. It's basically attracting more theft. It's basically attracting more bad situations, more bad emotions and whatever. So to sum it up, you're the creator of this experience, and you decide not with what you want, but with what you are, what type of experience you're experiencing.
That's so interesting. I love that. It's so different to, it's even different to, I think, how most guests of mine would answer that. Are there things that you are actively working towards? Like let's say like 100,000 YouTube subscribers, for example.
To be honest, I mean, there are different types of consciousness. And I think I went through all types of consciousness to realize what we really are in our essence. And so what lots of people are doing, they're just living like super unconsciousless. So they're basically achieving goals from other people. So the mother is saying, okay, you have to go to university. They go to university and then they realize, okay, it's not really what I want and it's not what's fulfilling me. And then I achieve the next dream and it's still not fulfilling me. And so you're basically like in a rat race. So this is the lowest type of consciousness. Then the next type of consciousness is where you really start to be like the creator of your life, where you really start to have like a goal or something like that. But then you realize, okay, if I want to achieve this goal, I cannot achieve it by willing. I have to achieve it by being. So you have to, for example, feel into the emotion. You have to live your life as if you would already have achieved this type of goal. So for example, if you want to be a big YouTuber, then just start to live like a big YouTuber right now, and the universe will realize, okay, it's a YouTuber, it will attract more of this type of YouTube energy and it will give you, and then at some point you will explode. But what I really like most, so I don't really like to be, I mean, it's better to be a creator than to be like a victim. So you can grow from the victim to the creator. But what is like the highest form, in my opinion, of living, and I don't want to say that it's bad or it's worse or whatever. Everyone can experience all type of experiences or of consciousness. But what I really like to do is to not control things anymore so much out of my ego or out of anything, because as long as you have goals, there is always like an ego, or there's always like something human, or there's always like something that's interfering and that's clinging to this type of goal, and that's saying, okay, I want to achieve this because if I achieve it, then probably I'm happy or whatever. What I really like is to tune out of everything. And you can achieve this type of consciousness with meditation or whatever, go into the woods or whatever. Some people, they use drugs. I don't do this. Or you can just achieve it by basically just observing. You don't have to do like any magical things. I mean, I was back in a cave for 2 years, but you don't have to do this to get this type of realization. But what I like to do is to just tune out and to just observe, because the realization behind this is everything is working automatically. The sun is going up automatically. The birds, they are flying around you automatically. Winter is coming, you don't have to do anything for it. Summer is coming, you don't have to do anything for it. We have like those periods, everything is growing, dying, growing, dying. it's basically happening automatically. And we are now the human beings, and we think, okay, because we are like the center of the universe, we have to do everything forcefully. We have to force ourselves to achieve this type of goal. We have to force ourselves to go to work, to do this, to do that, to do whatever. If you just tune out and realize you cannot achieve what you already have, you are already a fulfilled person, you have already everything, everything is already there. If you realize this, and if in this type of fulfillment state, then you will also realize I don't really have to achieve some type of things because I'm already fine with the situation, and I can basically tune out and I can just observe, because all type of people, they have something like a higher guidance. They have like an intuition, they have like a, let's say, an inner voice or whatever. And it's basically just like riding a wave, just like here in the background, you see like all the surfers. So you're just basically riding the wave of life, and you're not fighting against the waves anymore. You're not fighting for anything again. You're just observing and you're just letting be. And it's basically also like non-interference. It's basically the practice of non-interference. You realize that everything is already fine like it is, and so you cannot even make it better if you interfere. It's just like in markets, what Mises says, the intervention spiral. If you intervene into economics, then everything get worse. And it's the same with your consciousness. It's the same with your type of lifestyle. The more you intervene, the more you destroy it. And the more you let the universe just do its thing, the more it will just grow automatically.
It's so it's very beautiful, very different. I love that. It's something I probably have to listen again. Because like it's very different to what is the mindset in my environment, what is the mindset, I think even like most people on this podcast, I would guess so. And it's hopefully some of the viewers get inspired. Hopefully some of them get something out of that. And that's really cool. I love that. I have one question to ask each and every one of my returning guests of the podcast, and you have been on once or twice.
Yes.
So like you definitely have been on. I think the latest I remember was at Bitcoin Prague 1.5 years ago. I think this was the last one we did together. And the question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance, like about 1.5 or maybe even 1.5 years ago?
Oh, a lot. So what did I learn? So many things, because this is also like something I experienced when I was like a little child. I was like so ambitious. I was like so looking into the world, and I was like so curious about everything happening. And then I went into school, and then after 15 years of school, the curiosity was completely gone. And now all the curiosity is back, and I'm learning like every day. So probably I cannot even sum up everything, but just to give you like a few examples. So for example, I started like with all these Bitcoin things, and before the Bitcoin thing, I was like already into how to generate a healthy body, into consciousness and those type of things. And what I now also learned is like those type of how to set up a decentralized type of lifestyle. So also like what I learned is how to, it's super easy to basically leave a country and to just go to a country where you treat it better. So basically it's actually pretty shameful that I did not do this step earlier, because this is what I talked about, the mind control. Often your thoughts are controlled. You think, okay, if you're leaving it, then you're losing something, or it's hard, or you cannot do it because this and that and whatever. And everything went better since I made this step. So decentralizing lots of things, but also like little things. For example, here's like my motocross and my motorbike. I never was driving motorbike since I came here to El Salvador. Some guy, he just showed it to me, and since then I bought a motorbike, and now I love it. And I don't even have a driver's license for it. I never have made like official motorbike training. He just showed it to me, because in El Salvador you can drive it without an official license. You can just drive it with your basically German driver's license. It's fine. So there is like a big list, and I'm learning like every day. For example, what I'm now super into is like the AI game. I'm also like AI in combination with YouTube is super interesting. Then also like the whole treasury game is super, super interesting. So the basic Bitcoin thing for me, it's like, yeah, not so interesting anymore because you have your Bitcoin and self-custody and that's it. But now the treasury game, this is like exciting me. And I always have like, let's say 2, 3, 4 topics or something like that. I'm really digging like super, super deep into it. And then at some point I get some type of saturation and then I'm opening like the next topic. But basically that's always what I did in also like in former time. I was always digging into 1, 2, or 3 type of topics, but sometimes even just one topic, going super deep into it. And at some point it just, yeah, my curiosity was fulfilled, and then I'm experiencing the next type of rabbit hole.
I love that. Like the almost like the inner child and like finding the curiosity back that you have. Like we always know, I mean, it's like very well known that like once you get into school, you have like 1,000 questions, and the questions slowly get to get slowed down because like the system doesn't teach you to be curious. It teaches you to behave and do the things that you have been told to do, and so yeah, it's great that. It's sad that we have to find that back, because if we're honest, we can just like not unlearn this thing and have it naturally. And now because we did have to unlearn this, we have to learn it also again. Crazy, yeah. We have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. It's an interesting one. I first didn't understand the question actually, but he asked, should I learn more from modern creators or from the classics? And what he means by that is, if, for example, you aim to make a movie, should you learn from the last 10 years of movies, or should you learn from the movies that were made 50, 60, 70 years ago?
I think this is like a super good question, because this is something that pops in my head now, because there is like this quote of Nietzsche, and Nietzsche also always said, the people are never reading the good content, they are always reading the new content. And this is like so into my head. And this is also when I was like, this was like probably 10, 15 years ago already, when I was like super into philosophy. The news, they did not really bother me that much. But in this time, I really realized that everything that can be written is already written. So we have like some type of wisdom, and we cannot invent the wheel new. So everything is already there. Even Bitcoin was already there. Bitcoin was there all the time. It's just nobody put together all the things to manifest Bitcoin, but it was always there. And this is also what goes way back. Platon always said, like, the ideas, they are already there. Everything is already there. And if you're like writing a book or something like that, you're basically just connecting to your source, you're connecting to your inner power, and you're basically streaming it out of the source. So if you're reading a book, you can go and read a book. Sure, you can do it, but also you probably can just directly connect with your source. You can directly connect with God, or name it however you want, and you can just take the knowledge directly out of it. And this is something that called like wisdom. And also, if you look, there are like some common principles into life. For example, don't harm other people. If you don't harm other people, your life will just be more harmonious. Or for example, don't or be polite to other people. If you're polite to other people, then probably they will be polite to you. Or don't kill other people. If you don't kill other people, probably also your life will be more better. It will be more harmonious. So there are like principles in the universe, and your job, I think, is not to always go for the news. And I mean, I'm doing like a lot of news content because I also enjoy it, but I'm also super aware that everything that is written was already written, and everything that is there is already, or was already there, like all the time. It's just sometimes people don't have the access to it, and you as a human being, you can get this access back. And then there's also this difference, because some people, they read like all the books, and this is like book smart, but other people, they are like street smart, or they have wisdom, and wisdom is not gained by reading books. Wisdom is gained by observing. Wisdom is gained by having your mind shut down, having like a calm mind. And if your mind is calm, then automatically the wisdom is coming out of you. If your mind is calm, if you're in the here and now, automatically the love and the silence and the harmonious type of things, they are growing out of your consciousness. You can almost not stop it. And this is like also then to answer the question, the answer for it, don't always look like for all the things that are going on in the world, but more tune into what is already there, because everything that is written, all the movies, everything that can be invented, it's probably already there. You just have to connect with it, and then you can give birth to it. This is also like a musician. If you ask Mozart, he will not tell you, okay, I wrote the music. The music was playing through him. He just was like the medium which gave birth to this type of medium, to this type of musical composition. And probably you also know it sometimes with conversations or something like that. Sometimes you're just in the zone, you're not thinking about it, you're just doing it, you're just like, yeah, it's all this happening like automatically. You're not doing too much to it. Or if you like in sports, or other people recognize this in music, or sometimes if you're in nature. So I don't think you have to always chase like for the new things and the new content creators and whatever, and more align with what is already there, with the source, or call it whatever you want.
I love that. This is really, that's nice, because like if you think about it, like all the things have already been there, all the things have already been written, and the only thing that we do it is just like, hey, there's this thing, and I'm giving it a new name. Like,
Yes,
I put my own thing on top of that, but someone else already put that thing on top of it. I just like, now I'm the medium of it. That's a crazy perspective, because like, I always like to, whenever I think about a hard problem, or whenever I think about how will this play out, I always look at history. I always look like, what are examples of recent history, like 20, 30, 50 years ago, but are there examples that maybe relate to that, like 100 years or like 1,000 years ago, or something like even further than that. And there you then can see, oh, we actually already had that. Like we already lived through that. Interesting. I love that. I really love that. Really, thank you so much, Marc, for being on the podcast again. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
Yeah, you can check out my YouTube channel, Bitcoin Hotel. You can check out my X account, Bitcoin Hotel. That's basically it. Or you probably will dig into me if you're in El Salvador, probably at the volcanoes or the waterfalls. I don't know. And yeah, thanks for inviting me, and hope you're probably Robin, when are you coming back to El Salvador?
I have to come back to El Salvador, hopefully this year.
Okay, then see you in El Salvador.
I'll see you in El Salvador. Thank you so much, Marc, for being on. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining me. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and for joining me today in the podcast. I'll be back. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.